Hello folks, welcome. We are halfway through the week, or we're getting there, and it's time for some hobby nightmares. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, you know what to do. And also, the Patreon's down below, if you want to get me a belated birthday drink or something, and the Discord is down below. No, you don't need to be on the Patreon to be on the Discord. It's completely free, so there it is. Let's jump in, shall we, to some hobby nightmares. First of all, we have Alfarius Jones. And he says, well, it's a story titled The Fall of House Dave. And I've been waiting to read this one for like 2 or 3 days now, because I got it on like February the, when was it, the 3rd? Yeah, the 3rd. So, it's the Saturday, yeah, the Saturday. And I read it on the train, heading over to Liverpool, so I really do want to read this now. So, let's get involved, shall we? He says, and I quote, "This tragic tale is from the halcyon days of my youth in the early noughties. It is a tale of a heart inside of a friendly local gaming store bursting with unrequited love. This love burned pure and fought valiantly against the forces of chaos that festered in a nearby pizza shop where I worked. I use the word chaos advisedly. If this tale had taken place in the grimdark, the shop would have been shut down, burned, and the ashes scattered to the four winds by the Order Hereticus, with the Grey Knights hunting down and slaughtering any survivors. I got a pizza delivery job as a summer gig in college. Delivery was pretty good money, for essentially driving around in your car all day blasting music. I saw the Help Wanted sign, walked in, and was surprised to be greeted by a friend whom I hadn't seen in 2 years. The owner happened to be in the store. My friend talked me up to such an extent that I was hired on the spot and didn't even have to officially apply. I never saw that friend again because he went home that same night and commenced a spectacular 3-month multi-state, oh my god, can I even say that right now? No. A 3-month multi-state drug binge with his tweaker girlfriend. No one had any idea where he was and couldn't contact him. He never even came back for his last paycheck, and I later found out that he had decided to just stay in the 2 states where he had ended up, permanently zonked, and North Carolina. Okay. The place had some interesting folks working there. One such co-worker, Diver Dan, had been medically discharged from a probably too long career as a deep-sea welder. The combination of breathing weird air mixtures, constant compression and decompression cycles, the occasional BANS episode, and some sort of long-term heavy metal poisoning had left him slightly off. He was generally an easygoing, albeit twitchy kind of guy, who was content to quietly do food prep in the back and not talk to anyone. However, another co-worker, Scumbag Larry, we all know one, Scumbag Larry, delighted in constantly winding him up by insinuating that Dan's time in the Navy pretty much guaranteed he was prancingly gay, quote-unquote. He wasn't, but he always reacted explosively to the accusation, and you got the impression the guy was carrying some serious unresolved trauma in addition to everything else. Seeing that, most folks would just ease off and let sleeping dogs lie. But Scumbag Larry wasn't quite smart enough to be considered most folks. Yes, known a lot of guys like this. Not enough brains. And then they get a smack in the mouth and they start whinging and complaining that somebody had the temerity to actually hit them. Anyway. One day, after enduring several hours of hey, it's not gay if it's underway, and I got a cousin who really likes sailors, you two should hang out, unquote, Diver Dan snapped and began chasing Scumbag Larry around the shop with the 3-foot pizza slicer, basically a giant 2-handed machete at this point, before finally giving up and slamming the blade 2 inches into a wooden cutting table. The owner of the shop was remarkably understanding about Diver Dan being provoked, but still had to fire him because technically it was pretty close to the legal definition of attempted murder. Diver Dan magnanimously agreed and said, yeah, he completely understood the situation. They shook hands and parted on good terms, David Dan seems like a nice guy. I hate it when these things happen. But where's the hobby? There better be some hobby coming in here pretty soon. The owner really wanted to fire Scumbag Larry, but never got the chance, because Scumbag Larry went and got himself arrested for outstanding felony warrants and possession of meth after an embarrassingly short police chase. Such are the risks when you only put gas in your car at $4 at a time. Dude, where were you? Where are you? You're living in Grand Theft Auto. What is going on? On to the main character of our tale of woe. Okay. Alrighty. As a baseline, women delivery drivers generally make 150% of the tips that guys do. In those benighted days, social media pretty much took off. Enterprising young ladies discovered that by delivering pizza whilst wearing a shirt 2 sizes too small over a jiggle bra, they could really rake in the dough. This tactic would easily push the percentage up to 300%, because simps in those days didn't have Instathoughts or OnlyFans to throw money at, so they would instead give away ludicrous tips to any jiggly pizza driver who smiled at them and knew their name. Dude, that's fair enough. I won't have you besmirching working, what do we call hired guns? Hired guns, that is an art in and of itself. That's what we call a woman who's using the goods in a respectful way as a barmaid, as a barrister, as a delivery driver, whatever. They give you a little flirt, right? They bat their eyelids at you, they make you feel good, and because of that, you give them an extra bit of a tip. It doesn't have to be hundreds of dollars or pounds. I mean, like, if you're paying for a £3 pint of lager, you know what I mean? You give her a 30p tip, right? Or a 50p tip. That's a lot. You know, for a tip, that's quite a lot for one drink, you know? So, yeah, it's fine. I've never had a go at this. I think it's completely fine. It's one good way for women to earn money, and you know, and you're not showing the goods off. You're not like cheating. You're not trying to get in somebody's pants. Nothing like that, right? I did it myself. When I was in America, my woman at the time basically pimped me out. You know, half decent looking British guy. She put me in a leather jacket, sent me to a bar with my CV. I got the job working in the bar, and I raked in the tips. Why? Because that bar was frequented by all of the town's MILFs. That's right, all of the middle-aged women, not all of them are MILFs, all of the middle-aged women went there. I batted my eyelids, I gave a bit of a flirt, I didn't let anyone touch me. I batted my eyelids, had a bit of a flirt, turned on the charm. $500 a weekend, easy. $500 a weekend. That's just tips, not even being paid. So yeah, it's good. Do it, man. It's fine. No problem at all. The problem is we've now got Twitch thoughts, we've now got Insta thoughts, we've got people who expose an OnlyFans way of living, where women go from simply, flirting in a bar to get money to actually getting their tits out and their vaginas out and all that sort of stuff, ruining their lives forever because they're always going to be online, and then complaining about it. No, you make your decisions, you suffer your consequences, alright? No one asked you to get your vajayjay out and put it online, okay? Especially if you're on OnlyFans. No one asked you. You did it to make money, you made your money, that's it, right? Don't listen to old porn stars who tell you that, my life's ruined because I did porn. They made that decision, dude. Alright? They especially these days, right? They're not just like trafficked in off the boat these days. They used to be. It used to be horrible. These days, they become fucking celebrities. And they've always got a ready-made audience there to pay them thousands of dollars a month for just existing when they're on OnlyFans. Dude, I just don't like it. It's just a bit of, a bit of society I don't like. I don't mind an honest grift. An honest grift's fine. Because I know what you're doing. You're flirting with me. I know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. I give you a tip and I leave. Right? That's fine. But going on OnlyFans, becoming a porn star, and then complaining about it, about the consequences of your own actions, doesn't sit well with me. Just doesn't, right? Yeah. You don't get to sidestep all of life's responsibilities because you're a woman. Alright? Cool. Moving on. One such woman at our store was Larcernia Vander Jiggles. Dude, I'm not saying that name every fucking time. I know you're a clever sod and you're a good writer, but I'm not reading that name every time. She had been hired along with her baby daddy, and the two of them worked together to scam the store by not recording orders. An order would come in, they'd make it, deliver it, receive cash payment, and not report the order in the store books. The owner wondered why their shifts always had 75% less sales, and quickly figured out the scam they were running. Unfortunately, it would have been almost impossible to gather enough evidence to prosecute, since Larcenia pled complete ignorance. He had to settle for planting the steel toe of his boot 6 inches into the posterior of her baby daddy on the way out of the door after being fired. It was during this time that Larcenia again began delivering pizza to the owner of the friendly local game store. Hooray, the hobby's here, folks! It's here. His name was Dave, and we know we're in the hobby section of the story because Dave has arrived. Yes, our lovely Dave, who's always around one of our hobby nightmares, has arrived. His name was Dave. I already knew Dave because I'd spent a lot of money in junior high and high school buying Metal Warhammer Orcs from him. Dave was a genuinely awesome guy, but unfortunately, he also hit just about every single bad cliche in the business. He was late middle-aged, single, not quite obese, but definitely a husky lad, with a comb-over, a wispy moustache, and thick 1980s-style programmer glasses that turned dark brown in bright sunlight. If you imagine Napoleon Dynamite's brother Kip crossed with Potato Head, you have a pretty accurate picture of what this guy looked like. The guy was sort of a dynamo, running wargames clubs, D&D clubs, as well as 3 different R&C clubs, and his shop was filled with terrain tables and painting stations, floor-to-ceiling shelves of plastic models, miniatures, parts, and every imaginable paint for just about every hobby you could think of. This is North talking now. You may mock this man, right? But he's making a career out of what he loves, and he's spreading that love and making a career out of it. You were working in a fucking pizza place. I don't think you were in any position to judge. Moving on. He ran tournaments, hobby meetups, RC races, and practically anything else you could imagine, and did it all with unflagging enthusiasm and energy. He ordered pizza nearly every day for his employees, and would make much larger orders for the fairly regular store events. Dude, this guy sounds like a fucking Chad. I don't care what he looks like. This guy's a bro. At any rate, Dave was completely blinded by what he saw with his eyes, and decided Larcenia was the paragon of all things feminine and virtuous in the world, and became a regular customer at the pizza shop, timing his orders for when he knew she was delivering. About 3 weeks into my employment, the pizza store owner suddenly announced he had sold the store, lock, stock and barrel, and that our jobs will continue under the new owner. Okay. What had happened was this. A 14-year-old girl had been working there a year or so previous who was extremely promiscuous. Oh no. I don't know what kind of horrible home life or trauma had brought her to that point, but she was constantly flirting, openly suggesting indecent liaisons with pretty much every guy in the store, and bragging about her body count with older guys, quote unquote. I say this not to cast blame, but as a simple statement of fact. If it isn't right, and it isn't right, and is sad to see, but such girls do exist. Indeed, they do. Indeed, as a teacher, I've come across many, and you need to. It's one of the things they don't teach you as a teacher, what to do when somebody comes on to you. If you're a young male teacher, especially in an all-girls school, it is a matter of days before a young girl decides, you know, she wants you to be her first, right? They are not thinking clearly. They're teenagers, right? They never teach you what to do. You're always sitting there going, whoa, what do I do, right? Yeah, you back away slowly. You tell them it's inappropriate, right? And you tell them if it happens again, you're gonna go to the headmaster, right? When they leave, you go to the headmaster anyway, because anytime anything like this happens, when you're in a position of authority, you need to go to your first point of call. That's usually your principal or your headmaster. You go and you say, this has happened, nothing to do with me, this has happened, this girl's got a crush, she tried to act on it, I pushed her off, I got out of there. You're not going to get fired, you're not going to get sacked, right? It happens all the fucking time in schools. They will laugh at you. You know, in a good-natured way, they'll make a note of it, and you're just covering your own ass, because if she comes out and says anything else after that, you were there first. You're on record first as saying you didn't like what she was doing, and shit wasn't going, you know, you asked her to not do those things, right? So if she comes out after that saying, he touched me, because you said no, which does happen as well, the school has evidence to say, no, actually, you know, the date your daughter said this happened, it couldn't have happened because he was here with us. And by the way, we've got it on record that she was acting inappropriately with him months before the allegations. There you go, right? So that's why you do it. You cover your own ass. I don't know what you do in a situation like this. Just don't. It's jailbait, dude. Don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. And, by the way, if you go to a club or something and you're speaking to a girl and you have any doubts whatsoever, ask for ID. I've done it. Ask for ID before you take it home. That's it. You know? Because just because she's in the club and she's ordering alcoholic drinks and getting served, that doesn't cover your ass. It doesn't. They will throw you in lockup quicker than a hiccup, right? Ask for ID. I've done it before. You ask for ID or you're not coming home with me. Sorry. Right? They should have it on them. They're at a bar, right? And they don't look 21. They should have it on them. If they do, and they're old enough, like, fine, whatever. Away you go, fill your boots on. But if any doubts whatsoever, if you're in an adult place, and you have any doubts that the woman you're talking to isn't an adult, ask for ID. Before you do anything with her, ask for ID. And if she doesn't have it on her, I don't care how hot she is, how amazing she looks, walk away. Walk. It's not worth the hassle, right? This is somebody else's dad's problem. It's her dad's problem, not yours, right? Send her away. Send her away. Anyway. Alright. Every guy in the shop knew the type and steered far clear of her. Every guy, that is, except Meth Head Mike, the manager, who thought, hey, this sounds like a good idea, and promptly embarked on a weeks-long love affair that mainly consisted of romantic getaways to the walk-in freezer. Oh my god. The owner found out and nearly had an aneurysm. He called the cops as well as the girl's parents. Meth Head Mike was fired and sent to prison for being a kiddie fiddler. But there you go. And the store owner threw out everything in the freezer and hired an industrial cleaning service to come in and bleach blast every surface in the shop. Dude, no wonder he sold it. The girl's mother and uncle decided to file a lawsuit claiming the owner had knowingly encouraged the fictitious shenanigans in the store, and that they had added a few $100s to Meth Head Mike's prison commissary discount. He agreed to testify against the owner in court. In Meth Head Mike's mind, he was in prison not because of his own idiotic vile actions, but rather the owner had it in for him and was an effing snitch man. So really, he had it coming. Right, okay. Yeah, this is not good. This is not good. This is why you steer far clear, dude. Steer far clear. Anyways, thanks to Meth Head Mike's perjury, the owner lost the lawsuit. The jury was so deeply moved by the horrific story of the naive, innocent, chaste 14-year-old girl who liked My Little Pony and lollipops, and was so cruelly used and deceived by the dastardly moustache-twirling pizza store owner and his minions, that they decided to award her several $1 million in damages. The owner had to sell everything he owned except his back teeth to pay the judgment, or at least to start paying it, and as a final take this job and shove it move, just before the new store owner took over, he prompted Lacernia to head manager. Oh my god. The new shop owner was a strange man. He was a really gangly looking, awkward guy, and carried a permanent air of condescension with him everywhere he went. When he got flustered, like when he forgot the store security code in the morning and set off a 110 decibel klaxon alarm, this happened twice, he turned purple and completely loses composure to the point of barely being able to walk without tangling his legs in knots and falling over. He owned a bunch of pizza stores on the complete opposite side of the state and was now seeking to expand his mighty empire. He was one of those guys who thinks incredibly highly of himself and somehow, despite the mountains of opposing evidence, gathers sycophants around him who agree with every word he says and follow him around like little ducks. One of these little ducks was a newly minted MBA who had run one of his earlier pizza shops, and he somehow convinced this guy to move clear across state and take over as head manager in our little shop at Chaos Corners Shopping Plaza, okay? The drama started immediately. Dude, where is okay, yeah, there's some hobby here, okay. When Larsenia, now the head manager for a few weeks at least, with Larsenia now the head manager for a few weeks at least, I got all her delivery shifts and spent quite a bit of time working close shifts with her. I'd like to say that she was lovely, misunderstood diamond in the rough kind of girl, but that was not the case. If she was tired and didn't want to work, she'd take the phone off the hook so she wouldn't have to take orders. She would spend literally hours on the phone gossiping with her friends, leaving me to handle delivery and food prep, as well as pretty much clean and close the store by myself while she talked on the phone. When the owner would come in the next morning and would find something that hadn't been done or done poorly, things she had been responsible for, she would blame me and I would get yelled at. Dude, worked with people like that before. Hell yeah. Oh my days. When we were alone in the store, she would be amazingly inappropriate. Suddenly lifting up her shirt in casual conversation and asking if I thought her baby stretch marks made her look old. In all honesty, she was an extremely good-looking woman, and exceptionally charming when she wasn't being otherwise. Maybe the shirt lifting and other things she did were an invite, maybe it was just craziness, or possibly a combination of the two, but I at the time was dating someone twice as hot and 3 times as psychotic. I was going to fix her with love. She just needed a stable man in her life. Yeah, yeah, we've all been there too, man. Not great. Not great. So I wasn't interested and just kept the impression of being completely flirt blind and clueless. After a while, things settled down and the new owner added a 3rd person to the night shift, which forced her to occasionally do her actual job. When I took over Larsenia's old delivery shifts, friendly local gaming store Dave called right up on schedule, and Larsenia answered the phone like it was her long-lost billionaire fiancé, freshly returned from battling Ming the Merciless in outer space. Dave! Oh my god, I haven't seen you in so long, giggle. How are you? I bet you want the usual, don't you? Oh wow, it's like so good to hear from you. Seriously, I was like such a good in a bad mood today, but you always cheer me up. That kind of thing. The level of manipulation on display about broke my mind the first time I saw it, completely without purpose. But it was like she just couldn't help herself. Like she needed to know some guy she'd never sleep with was nevertheless utterly and completely on the hook. Yeah, thing is, guys, when a woman first turns that on in front of you, it is mind-blowing. When it first happens, you're like, oh my god. They all do that? Most of them, yes. Most of them are very capable of doing this. Anyways, I got the pizzas, and off I went to the friendly local gaming store. When I walked in, Dave shied back a step and nickered like a spooked racehorse. Please don't use words like nickered in Hobby Nightmares, because YouTube doesn't know the difference between nickered and another word that I don't want to say. Oh, he sputtered. You're not Larsenia? No, I said. But I just talked to her on the phone. Yeah, dude. She just got promoted to head manager. His face brightened immediately. All credit to him, he was honestly happy to hear that she had had a stroke of good fortune. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for her. Yeah, I'll tell her, dude. No problem. Total is $38.97. He paid and asked me again to tell her how impressed he was, and unfortunately did not let his emotions influence the tip he gave. Aww. This continued until I know there's not a lot of hobby in this, but I'm kind of invested and on the line here. We're nearing the end, so yeah. This continued until the aforementioned new head manager arrived, and Larsenia was officially demoted to me as shift manager. She'd unburden her troubles when Dave would call, and I would drive off to deliver the pizzas. Dave had by now accepted the fact that I was the new driver, but was definitely not overjoyed about it. As the weeks passed, Dave was getting less cheerful each time I came, and asked me very pointed questions about the new head manager and his horrendous treatment of Larsenia. I just can't believe she puts up with that treatment. She has the patience of a saint. Of a saint. Discretion being the better part of valor, I wasn't going to contradict him, so I said, yeah, we all just gotta roll with the punches, I guess. She has a child! A child! The situation just galls me. Yeah, times are tough all over, dude, I replied, giving my head a slow, sympathetic shake. Well, anyway, here's your change and thanks for the tip, man. It was all getting a bit much. I had never seen such an obvious case of white knight syndrome before, although at the time I admittedly could have found one only by looking in the mirror. I like the fact that you're very self-deprecating and that you know that you did wrong as well. I like you. I like this guy. I tried to keep my answers to Dave's increasingly hostile interrogations neutral, and while any attempts to pour oil on the troubled waters were for naught, I resolved not to say anything to stir things up further, and definitely wasn't going to be the bearer of cold water to his delusions about Larsenia. Dave was, quite frankly, at the point where a friend should have pulled him aside and said, dude, she's not dying of syphilis in a French whore hospital, you don't need to start singing. I like that, that's cool. Alas, no such friend was willing to risk the wrath of friendly local gaming store Dave, and we all continued our leisurely stroll towards disaster. Larsenia's shifts kept decreasing, and eventually she was moved to a different shift entirely, and the new head manager officially took up the night shifts. Alright, that's not going to go down very well. Let's see where this goes. The new head manager, Rundle, was about 26, overweight, with unfortunate bulging eyes, and even an unfortunate goatee with a razor-shaped pencil-line beard to try and trick people into thinking he had a jawline. Remember, this was the early noughties. He had a pointy head, and thus wore a hilariously small pizza hat, which he pulled down to his eyebrows. On his off days, he covered his pointy head with a tiny, stylish Burberry fedora. Oh no. He was completely without any observable personality, but by far his greatest weakness was the things he could just not see. For example, he could not see when things did or changed didn't work. Okay? Things he did or changed didn't work. Okay. Alright. If a customer didn't pick up their order, rather than offer it up to the rest of the staff for a free dinner, like most managers do, he loudly and officiously announced that any of the employees could buy the now cold pizza for full price. When no one took the offer, he threw the entire pizza in the trash. Some days this happened multiple times a night, because apparently no one in business school taught Rundle how to take orders properly. He'd screw up the order, apologise to the irate customer, remake the order for free, then toss the first attempt in the trash, on top of a previous screwed up order when none of us wanted to buy his mistakes. One time, I pulled $1 out of my pocket and said, "Hey Rundle, I'll give you $1 for it." He had mistakenly put jalapeno peppers on a pizza for a child's birthday party. I mostly did this to wind him up. I knew he'd never accept it and would probably be grievously offended as a bonus. Indeed, Rundle bulged his eyes furiously and said, "The price, and I'll remind you, that is non-negotiable, is $15.38, which I can deduct from your paycheck if you so prefer." Never mind then. I'll go get dinner at Taco Bell. You can't go to Taco Bell in your pizza uniform. No worries, I'll just use the drive-thru. You're on the clock. You have a brightly lit pizza sign on the roof of your car. You can't go to Taco Bell. I can't? I'm trying to be a problem solver, Rundle. Is that official store policy now? Yes, he screamed, and I'm putting it in a memo right now. With that, he violently hurled the pizza into the trash and stomped into his office, slamming the door behind him. My God. Rundle often came in on his days off to do paperwork in the office. In reality, he just sat there with his tiny fedora and he cast his suspicions on people. Bulging eye glared around the store, on guard for any malfeasance or rebellion. He was quite certain we were all plotting against him to loot the store down to the floorboards and send him back home in disgrace. This only shows how entirely in the grip of fevered paranoia he was, as our plots against him never involved burglary, but rather varied humorous ways to set him on fire, and when we would then hide his corpse or put it on display. And then they almost certainly never progressed past the brainstorming stage, though. As the summer wore on, the tension ratcheted up just a smidgen, each day, almost unnoticeably. Nothing major happened aside from a delivery driver that suddenly quit without warning, one of those truly odd guys. He showed up the next day wearing a black sweater, black stocking hat, it was August, black sweatpants, black sneakers and black sunglasses, and began pacing back and forth in the parking lot for 35 minutes, stopping occasionally to stare at the storefront, all while having what appeared to be an 8-person argument with himself, completely with seemingly random, spastic gesticulations. Yeah, I'm telling you now, dude, that guy was thinking of robbing your store. Okay? So there was once when I was in Games Workshop, when I'm working there. Obviously, I'm there with my manager, and I'm standing around, and there is a guy outside, right? And he has a balaclava, but he's got one of those balaclavas that you pull up from the neck up. It's really weird, right? But he had one of them, and he had it around his neck. And my manager was quite observant, and he looked at him from the till, you know what I mean? And this guy is pacing, and he's pacing just out of line of sight of our cameras in Games Workshop on the outside. Now, they're not our cameras. For those of you who know, Games Workshop doesn't really have cameras inside of stores. But if you're in a mall or a shopping centre, they might outside. And my manager pointed him out to me and was like, keep an eye on that guy, get behind the till, please. Looking out for my safety, you know what I mean? Get behind the till, please. And I said, why? He said, I think he's about to try and rob us. And so he went to walk into the store, right? And just before he hit the camera line, he stopped, swore really loudly, whipped off the balaclava and walked off. So we came quite close to being robbed. And my store manager, who was a prick, actually was looking out for my best interest there and tried to keep me safe. So thank you very much if you are listening to this on the off chance that you are. I doubt you are, but there we are. I thought I'd inject some hobby into your hobby nightmare, because there's no hobby here. Alright? Cool. I read the first half of this on the train the other day, thinking, oh my god, this is really cool. I got to the part where Dave came into the story, thinking this is going to be great. There's no hobby here, dude. Right? It's really annoying. So please, in future, make sure there's more hobby in here. Hopefully there's some hobby towards the end of this hobby nightmare. Let's read it, shall we? Someone in the store noticed the guy and was about to call the police, when 3 police officers suddenly rolled up and actually escorted the guy inside. As it turned out, he had just come for his last paycheck and had called the police to escort him inside because he was afraid that Rundle was going to do things to him. As a matter of policy, the cops had to ask follow-up questions to Rundle, asking if he had ever threatened violence or had secret desires towards the former driver, violent or otherwise, as had been vociferously proclaimed. Rundle hotly denied everything, handed over the paycheck, and bulged his eyes in intense annoyance at the cops. The rest of us spent the remainder of the night trying to figure out why, of all people on Earth, the guy had been afraid of Rundle. Sadly, the world will probably never know. The climactic event occurred one beautiful and fragrant August evening, when friendly local gaming store Dave was running a tabletop tournament. Yes! Hobby! Hobby is in the story! Okay. The climactic event occurred one beautiful and fragrant August evening, when friendly local gaming store Dave was running a tabletop tournament and an off-road rallycross RC meet in the vacant lot next to the store at the same time. The guy's organisational skills were phenomenal. He also ordered about 20 pizzas for the events, and as was perhaps inevitable, Rundle screwed up the order. Friendly local gaming store Dave had had enough. The camel's back was now broken, and the day of judgment and wrath was upon us all. He said to me in a strangely quiet voice, "I know this isn't your fault, but I'm going to have a calm discussion with Rundle." Leaving his underlings to run the events, he jumped into his pickup truck and drove off. It took me a second to realise that Dave was actually driving to the pizza shop and was driving very quickly. He arrived at the back of the pizza shop about 5 minutes before I did, and fireworks were already firing when I walked in. Someone at business school must have given a lecture on how to receive customer feedback using body language to show that you are actively listening, but Rundle invariably would lean forward just inside the personal space zone, furrow his brow, purse his lips, and goggle intently as the many irate customers that always seemed to come during his shifts arrived. He was doing so now with Dave, and sadly this display did not serve to say I am listening and I care, but rather I am startled as a groundhog and having a stroke. It is to my great and lasting sorrow that I missed the beginning of the conversation, but I'll carry on here. "All you can say is, I'll remake your order if you like. That's 25 pizzas. I can't wait 2 hours. You can't fix this, Rundle." Dave was aggressively pointing downwards with his index finger and furiously driving it into the counter to emphasise his points, which made a loud clonk each time he did it. "I understand," Rundle replied in a slow, emphatic sounding voice that one would use to placate an angry 2-year-old. "And again, my name, for your reference, is Rundle, not Rundle. Would you like coupons for future orders? We appreciate and value your continued business." At this point, he shifted to another business school recommended listening face, this one apparently taken from an advertisement for constipation relief. It had the effect of throwing Dave off of his stride for a moment. "What? No! I don't want coupons because you're just going to get the order wrong again. This is what happens when you treat your employees like crap, Rundle." Clonk, clonk, clonk. "And I understand, and on behalf of the company, I would like to again say how much we value your continued business." He shifted back to the tried and true, startled groundhog having a stroke look. "Not anymore, you're not. I am not coming back to this place from now on. I am ordering from Domino's." With that, Dave turned and stormed out. For a brief moment, there was a perplexed look that shimmered across Rundle's face, as if to ask, "Oh, what was his problem?" Sorry, that's really funny. That's really funny. He then shrugged and turned around. His face entirely returned to normal bulging-eyed placidity, and he returned to micromanaging his treacherous employees, namely me. I was informed that I needed to take the label maker machine and print warning labels for every piece of machinery in the shop. He then finished his shift and left for the night. Ever eager to go the extra mile in my work, I completed the task with my typical vigour and enthusiasm, and also made a prominent warning sign for the walk-in freezer that was big enough to be seen from the street. "Danger! Cold! Clothing is absolutely required." I like that, right? I like that little wink back to earlier events. As well as lengthy warning stickers that I put on every single knife in the shop. "Danger! Sharp! Do not stick in eye. Do not carry in waistband of underpants. Do not juggle. Do not throw to other employees if distance is greater than 15 feet. 2 days later, I received an official memo of concern about misuse of company property. Thus ended the summer. I went back to school in the fall and began work, and didn't return to the area for many years. I heard through some acquaintances that friendly local gaming store Dave had actually hired Larsenia to work in his shop and later married her. Well, dude, this guy's fucking killing it. Why are you having to go at him before? He's awesome. Whether that was anything to do with the store closing permanently a few years later, or merely a coincidence, I couldn't say, but I have my suspicions. Yeah, she rinsed him for everything. Absolutely. Absolutely. She took him for everything. Oh my god. My own adventures in White Knight errantry, briefly alluded to heretofore, ended in utter disaster. and were followed by 4 months of being stalked and literally fearing for my life. This pathetic episode ended quite suddenly and unexpectedly when, in a grandiose, typically insane gesture, she relocated to Tierra del Fuego and married the first gormless Nimrod to blunder across her path. She is currently on lucky marriage number 4. Today, the friendly local gaming store, the Valhalla of my youth, is boarded up and has been sitting empty for the past 15 years. There is now no gaming or hobby store within a 50-mile radius. The pizza shop is also long gone, replaced by a payday advanced loan shop that sells burner phones. Dude, that shows how the innocence of our youth has gone, you know what I mean, with the modern world. You used to see characters like these all of the time around your local game stores, and there would always be these like little stories that would happen. You've had many of them happen to you, which I'm not going to call bullshit on, but because they're so entertaining, but you know, there you go. Pizza delivery in the area is now mostly exclusively male due to the massive influx of folks from areas of the world where women are not allowed outside of the house by themselves, and those who do venture out alone are considered to be asking for it, quote unquote. At worst, women delivery drivers are not safe, although most commonly they are merely despised and given no tips whatsoever. Yeah, that's the backlash from the Twitch stuff I was talking about. The ever-virtuous rich folks think it's all diverse and wonderful and great, but the folks living on the bottom get it in the shorts. It is what it is, I guess. Is there a moral to this story? I'm not sure, although one that springs to mind is this. Crazy people will, without exception, add craziness to your life. As mere acquaintances, they will give you insane messes to clear up and frequent headaches, but a lot of good stories to tell. As intimates, they will at best destroy your life, and at worst, end it. When you have a choice in the matter, they are best avoided. When you don't have a choice, find the sick humour in it and make the conscious decision to enjoy your life. You've reached the end. Thanks for reading, Altharius Jones, Esquire, OBE, all that nonsense. Cheers, man. Wow, that was a 40-minute long story of Daring Do. I really enjoyed that. Even though it only had a little bit of hobby in it, right? I enjoyed it. Be very careful when you're sending in hobby nightmares. I may read half of them and think that you're getting to the hobby, and then you go away from them again. So make sure hobby nightmares have more hobby in it than that. Even though that did have hobby in it, I'll give you that. It had hobby in it, and it was quite funny. So we'll let you off, because good long stories are good long stories at the end of the day. Alright. Aimless Heart says, "Hey North, good to speak to you, even over an email, old chap. I hope all is going well with you. You did a little video a while ago about Games Workshop managers overstepping their authority a little bit, and there have been other videos about managers who are decent human beings being driven away. Well, both happened in my hobby nightmare. Our first manager, Dan, was a decent guy and had been with Games Workshop for decades by the time he actually left to go to pastures new. Everyone in the local area knew this guy and knew he was a solid member of the hobby to bounce ideas and questions off of. He was very against the more gamey aspects of the hobby as it crept in, and tended to blame the attitude of Twitch streaming and gaming streamers in general for infecting the hobby for the upturn in the players who played for blood. I even noticed that on recent videos of yours, every time you seem to push against the win at all costs mentality, there are always a few spurg heads in the comments telling you that you're the problem and that you're wrong. What idiots like that don't get is that the casual game players, like it or not, were here first. They built this place as something to use their painted and storied models in, not the other way around. It's their hobby you are throwing it is their hobby you are throwing your dice and sweating your palms in. Remember that before you assume that your way to play is the right way to play. Your literal rule books say on multiple occasions that you are playing the game wrong by playing for blood against your friends. Think on that. Dan did. He hated that side of the hobby and kept games in the store large but casual, with campaigns and interlocking stories being played out. That's cool, man. I kind of agree with you. Like, listen. Never feel the need to defend me in a hobby like me, alright? You don't. You literally don't. Most of the time, if you're nice to me in a comment on YouTube, I'll give it a heart, reaction. If I think you've genuinely misunderstood what I'm saying, and you give me a negative saying, if I've got time, I'll explain what I meant, or I'll just tell you I think you understood. You need to watch the video again, right? But most of the negative stuff I don't even read, or I skim. As soon as I think it's negative, I move on, right? Because I don't have time. I just don't have time. I even do it with the positive ones. If I see something positive, I give it a heart and move on. I don't sit there reading it, constantly. You don't need to defend me, because I think those of you in YouTube comments, right? It's the worst and the best people. Those are the people who leave YouTube comments. The best people and the worst people, right? The best people give you very good advice and constructive criticism, but they also appreciate what you're doing. And there are people in there too who just love what you're doing, give you compliments. That's always very nice, right? And say things like that. That's great, wonderful stuff. They're the best people, right? There's also the worst people, the people who bitch, the people who moan, the people who are never happy with anything that you do ever, right? The people who completely misunderstand what your argument, or even worse, they strawman your argument to argue a point you never even fucking made, right? You don't need to defend me from those people. I know they're the worst, so I just leave them be, right? They can just sit there. At the end of the day, if you comment on one of my videos, you're driving my content in the algorithm. That's fine by me. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. Anyway, he even had a reading club for Horus Heresy, where the Horus Heresy players would read a book together and then play out a massive battle once every few months in the store. The biggest we did was the Drop Site Massacre, which weirdly, the Loyalists won through just incredible dice rolling, although they lost all of their Primarchs. So they won on points, but lost the war. Kinda typical, really. Still, an amazing event with amazingly painted armies, backed up with top-notch lore and storytelling. The hobby, in essence. I agree. When Dan left, and he was replaced with Dwayne, we kind of all knew the jig was up. This guy was my worst nightmare. Arrogant, power-abusing, obsessed with winning and the meta, and a real brown-noser for Games Workshop's rules about gaming in-store. It was really weird, as Games Workshop were beginning at this time to halt gaming in stores altogether. They would actively discourage their managers from doing so, but it was not a carpet ban on gaming at this point. Dwayne lost a lot of support when he scrapped completely all of the campaigns going on in the store and replaced them with a league. A bog standard league following tournament rules. Great. All the nuance, all the passion, stripped back completely and replaced with a league in which Dwayne and his friends stomped everybody in sight. Over several months, the atmosphere in the store gradually shifted from a place of laughter to a place of one-upsmanship and chest-pounding. Sure, we'd create fun there and have a laugh from time to time amongst ourselves, but there would always be some try-hard idiots taking the piss out of other players for not being able to beat them and that kind of nonsense. It was honestly cringe seeing these neckbeards with saggy bellies act like naval aviators from Top Gun walking to their waiting jet planes whilst all they were doing was carrying their doom lists to the waiting wargaming table. Oh my god. That was not the worst of Dwayne though. Oh no. He was an absolute shitter for the rules of Games Workshop in the store and used them to full effect to suit himself. This happened to me and drove me off when I played one of his friends, Mark, in a friendly game of 40k. He brought 2 Skyhammer formations, as you do, and I brought no formations, but quite a powerful Iron Hands list that could repair their vehicles very quickly. What followed was a complete grind fest, but I was determined to beat this guy at his own power game, and he should have won, I will admit that, but the dice simply had other ideas, and the game ground to a halt as he dinged my vehicles, only for them to be repaired almost immediately. I had an old Land Raider, one of the first released, it looks like an old World War I tank, holding the central objective, and was actually looking like I was going to pull out a win by doing so. Dwayne strides over, imperious and smiling to himself, and points to my Land Raider. "What is that?" he asks derisively. I shrug. An old Land Raider, I say. "Oh no, haha," he chortles. "Games Workshop have never sold that model. Remove it from play immediately." Remove it from play, cheeky bastard. I scoff and carry on with the game, and he reiterates his demand. "Remove that non-Games Workshop model from play immediately, please." "Dude, what is your problem? What is wrong with the Land Raider?" I say. "It's not a Land Raider," he says. "Games Workshop have never sold that model. As such, it is not allowed to be played in the store. Remove it, please." I argue my case, even getting my phone out and showing him that this very model was a part of other people's armies, and that it is an old Land Raider that Games Workshop used to sell. I also point to my opponent's army, which is about 90% Forge World, of course, models, and say, "You don't sell those models either, so is Mark disqualified as well then?" At this point, Dwayne kind of gives up all pretense and says, "I am in charge of this store. I have made a polite request. Adhere to it or leave." I leaned into his face and looked him up and down with disgust. "I'd rather leave. You have permanently lost my business. Thank you very much." Once again, Dwayne scoffed before turning to Mark and declaring him the winner of the game. Yes, he did all of this to save his friend from a defeat and to drive away somebody he saw as a problem, as I'd regularly run narrative events for other hobbyists in the store. He went out of his way to do this, before this to make fun of people playing in the narrative games. Wow, really? He went out of his way before this to make fun of people playing in those narrative games, something I had told him to pipe down on, so he took the opportunity to get rid of me. And that, folks, is the worst Games Workshop manager from the worst subset of Games Workshop's fans that I have ever come across. He left 18 months after this, as there was a sharp drop-off from Dan's numbers. Thanks, North. Aimless. Well, that sucks, dude. That sucks big time, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. That absolutely sucks. Again, he got his comeuppance, I suppose, because he got fired or you left after 18 months. But my God, dude. My God, that kind of an attitude in a Games Workshop store. Just realise what you're doing. A Games Workshop store's there, right? It's there to sell models. If what you're doing isn't selling models, then you're not doing it properly. At all. Okay? You're just not doing it properly. If all you're doing is running leagues and running tournaments and having a little group for your friends to go in there and beat up on people in the hobby because they think it's funny, that's not the best place to run a store. Not the best way to run a store either. That is what tournaments are for. If you don't want to finish your games and you want to be involved in sweaty games like this, go and play in a tournament. That's what they're for. You will have fun, right? You will have fun. No problem. Go and have fun over there in the tournament. In the store isn't the place. In the store should be narrative games and should be games that grow the hobby, that new people want to be involved in. They don't want to be involved in seeing their sons get the shit kicked out of them by a grown-ass man who has nothing better to do than memorize his fucking codex from cover to cover, right? Cool. Don't do that in stores, okay? Ain't the place for it, and you will get a rep, and people will stop playing you, because they can't be arsed. They simply cannot be arsed with you or what you bring to the hobby. I'll be quite honest with you, right? There is a place for it completely at tournaments. Go and have fun at your local tournament. Go and find events to go and play in that are tournament level. That are, you know, we want to have a 40k tournament or an event. Go for it, dude. Go and have fun. Absolutely, Absolutely. But don't go to your local store and see someone just standing there with a random list of models and decide to get your fucking Doomstack out. What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You know, the game's bad enough as it is without people like that ruining it for other people. Alright? You very rarely get narrative people going to tournaments and complaining that the tournaments are too hard to play in. Very rarely happens. I think I've had one Hobby Nightmare that's happened about that, right? But we've had dozens of Hobby Nightmares the other way around. Of tournament people coming into normal Games Workshop stores or normal events for narrative purposes and playing for blood and then ruining it for everybody else, essentially, right? You know? By grinding all the games to a fucking halt. Stop it. Go and play at tournaments. Enjoy your part of the hobby. No problem. Right? Both sides of this are allowed to gatekeep. You're allowed to keep narrative people out of your tournaments or invite them in as you so fit, as you see fit with their attitude, right? And we're allowed to do that with our narrative events too. If you come in with the wrong attitude of, I must win at all costs, you don't belong playing with us. Go back to your tournament play. Alright? Cool. And we'll all get along. Alright? Love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow where I will be reading about your Space Marine chapters. Awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. Love you a long time. Speak to you then and have a good one. Bye now.